Diabetes Connections is brought to you by the only ultra-rapid-acting inhaled insulin, by Dexcom, keeping you in control with an integrated system for diabetes management, and by the T1D Exchange, dedicated to improving outcomes for the entire T1D population.
This is Diabetes Connections with Stacey Sims.
This week, Ginger Vieira is here to talk about her new book. She's written on everything from pregnancy with diabetes to exercise with it to her new series of children's books. But she's such a well-versed advocate, I had to ask her about her work at the T1D Exchange and all about her use of Afrezza. What does she want you to know about using inhaled insulin? We have a wide-ranging interview for you today with one of the bright lights of our community. This podcast is not intended as medical advice. If you have those kinds of questions, please contact your healthcare provider. Welcome to another week of the show. You know we aim to educate and inspire about diabetes with a focus on people who use insulin. Most of you know my son was diagnosed right before he turned 2, which meant we were always on the hunt for terrific picture books and anything I could read to him about diabetes when he was little. And I think that's one of the reasons why I enjoy talking to Ginger Vieira so much. The books that she has done in partnership with Mike Lawson, she writes them, he illustrates them. They've got a new one out called Ain't Gonna Hide My T1D, a type 1 diabetes picture book. We're going to talk about it, and you can find the links in the show notes and on the episode homepage. But talking to Ginger, I really wanted to take advantage of her because she is just a wealth of knowledge. Ginger actually diagnosed herself during her 7th grade science fair. She was 13 years old, and she also lives with celiac disease. She lives with fibromyalgia. We don't talk so much about those topics. Maybe I'll have to have her back soon. Ginger has written extensively for just about every diabetes outlet that is out there. I'll link up a few ways to get you started on reading her work in the show notes and on the episode homepage. But I am getting ahead of myself. The interview with Ginger coming up in just a moment. But first, Diabetes Connections is brought to you by Afrezza. One of the hopes when Benny was diagnosed, more than 16 years ago now, was for a way to deliver mealtime insulin without injections. And there's a way to do that now. Afrezza is the only FDA-approved ultra-rapid-acting insulin. Once you breathe Afrezza into your lungs using the inhaler, insulin appears in your bloodstream in less than 1 minute, and it may start lowering blood sugar in about 12 minutes. You can be spontaneous, but still in control without the need for injections at mealtime. Find out more and see if Afrezza is right for you. Go to diabetes-connections.com and click on the Afrezza logo. Afrezza can cause serious side effects, including sudden lung problems and low potassium, and it's not for patients with chronic lung disease such as asthma or COPD or for patients allergic to insulin. Tell your doctor if you ever smoked, ever had kidney or liver problems, a history of lung cancer, or if you are pregnant or breastfeeding. Most common side effects are low blood sugar, cough, and sore throat. Severe low blood sugar can be fatal. Do not replace long-acting insulin with Afrezza. Afrezza is not for use to treat diabetic ketoacidosis. Please see full prescribing information, including boxed warning, medication guide, and instructions for use on Afrezza.com/safety. Ginger, welcome back. It's great to talk to you again. How are you doing?
Stacey, thank you for having me. I'm doing very well. Life is very busy, but we're all doing well.
Great. I'm glad to hear it. I have so much to talk to you about, but I want to start by asking you about your latest book for kids. You and Mike Lawson have done it again. This is your second book together. Tell me about Ain't Gonna Hide My T1D.
So Ain't Gonna Hide My T1D features Sherry the sheep, and she is wearing a CGM on her arm, and she's really nervous about going to school for the first time with diabetes tech visibly on her body. And I am just a huge believer in the idea that the way you present something is the way people see it. So if I wear my diabetes as though I'm embarrassed by it, people are going to see it as something worth being embarrassed by. If I wear my diabetes, and by wear, I mean walk around, talk about, if I talk about my diabetes as though it's something that I'm proud of myself for dealing with every day, other people are going to see it as something to be proud of. And so that is a message that I really want to convey to kids in this book. So Sherry goes to school with her CGM on her arm, and she gets a lot of different reactions from different classmates. And the book teaches readers how to deal with those different reactions and how to stand up for yourself and wear your diabetes with pride.
Children's books are so important overall. And with little kids with diabetes. I remember reading books to Benny, he was diagnosed at 2, over and over again, the same books. He
Right.
loved them, loved diabetes books. They learned so much. He was ready to give them up. I still have them on the bookshelf behind me here in my office. I will never, Jackie's Got Game is
nice.
staying with me.
Cool. Yeah.
But what gave you the idea for this one? And I should mention, your first book with Mike is When I Go Low, obviously about low blood sugar. And Mike has another book for really, really little kids called Open Up Your Bag, which is probably for that 2-year-old, 3-year-old set. That's great as well. But what gave you the idea for this one?
Well, regularly, I have worked with and seen comments online, but I've worked with a lot of kids with type 1 as a camp counselor in the past before I had kids. And I know how hard it is to have to deal with the comments and worrying about being different, right? Like there's nothing harder than being different when you're little. And then add just normal differences, add this weird tech on your body that makes you feel like you're going to stand out like a sore thumb. And I just really believe in starting early with the understanding that, first of all, the self-pity trap of T1D. I really feel like if you get stuck feeling sorry for yourself, and that can start when you were young, it doesn't matter. It can start when you're 40 years old. It doesn't matter how old you are. If you are feeling sorry for yourself, you can't look for solutions. And type 1 diabetes is all about solutions, right? About adjustments and figuring out why your blood sugar did this when you did that. And if you're stuck in self-pity mode, you can't look for solutions. You can't look for new ways to thrive and enjoy life with type 1.
You seem like such a confident person. Was there ever a time for you where you thought, maybe I should hide this, or I don't want to deal with this? Just the technology.
I refuse to hide it. No.
But have you always been that way?
I mean, yes, I think so. I mean, we all learn, right? We all build I'm 37. I'm certainly more confident today than I'm sure I was when I was 17, but I will never allow myself to be bullied or belittled, right? And I really just believe that if you stand up with pride, that is how people view you. And so what you think in your head is what you convey to everyone around you. And you have to take responsibility for that and own it, because it makes a huge difference.
I always felt like we were very lucky in that Benny was also just a really confident kid. I mean, he came into this world very confident. I don't know that you can teach that, but
I think you can nurture it as a parent,
yeah, let's
right?
talk about that. So the kids that you worked with at camp, how do you nurture that? How do you take a kid? And obviously you can't solve everything. You're not going to, even as a parent, you're not going to perfectly turn this all around. But how do you nurture that confidence?
I think a huge part of it is when you see let's say high blood sugar, which is kind of the blood sugar readings that come with the most shame, right? Lows are scary and frustrating and feel terrible, but the highs come with the shame of, oh, I'm damaging my eyes. Or if you're the parent, like, oh, what about their eyes? What about their kidneys? It comes with a lot of fear and anxiety and worry. And that, high A1C, high blood sugar, we always feel like we're being graded and scolded for those things. I want to switch that conversation around between parent and kid and doctor and kid, anybody and kid. And instead of saying, oh, I stink at this, I screwed up, my blood sugar's 280 because I ate this and I got it all wrong. I want it to be a conversation of, oh, look, Jeremy, okay, so you had this for lunch, you took this much insulin, your blood sugar's 280, probably not what you were aiming for, right? So let's make a note, that didn't work. What can we do next time instead? And it removes this emotional blame game from the whole thing. And I mean, you have a child with type 1, this is an all day game every day. So if you're beating yourself up every time your blood sugar isn't perfect, that is going to wear on you between the ages of 6 and 45, right? That's something that needs to be addressed early on, and it needs to start in your family and how your parents react to blood sugars. Let's take the drama out of it and just focus on okay, dust off, try again, try something different.
And I think what's interesting is in the last, let's say 15 years, maybe 20 years, but really in the last 15 years, with the technology advancing as it is kind of harder to hide type 1 diabetes, right?
Yeah.
Even as it gets better and quote unquote easier, it's harder to hide.
Right.
How do you talk to those kids and nurture that confidence when they've got, maybe an insulin pump either on their waist or on their arm and a CGM on the other arm.
Yeah. And, Sherry teaches kids that in this book too, because they're pointing and laughing. Not every kid is going to point and laugh. Some might just instantly be empathetic and supportive, but we point and laugh at things we don't understand, right? So to help the kids around you understand what it is. So now it's no longer this weird, freaky thing. And it's like, hey, this gives me a medicine that my body doesn't make. Your body makes it. Mine doesn't. And this helps me stay alive and do life just like you, period. Right? Don't be afraid to explain it and say it out loud and then continue on, and if they don't react positively, if that doesn't turn their behavior around, you continue to stand up with pride and show them that picking on you doesn't matter. It doesn't impact you because you don't deserve that. And what you do every day with your type 1 is something to be proud of.
You said that you've always been a confident person, but and you've already shared your age. So, most people your age didn't have a CGM when they were in 3rd grade. But did anybody ever try to, I don't want to say pick on you, but were you ever in a situation where you felt somebody tried to make you feel weird, either on purpose or inadvertently?
My 8th grade boyfriend, I was diagnosed with celiac a year after type 1. He said, "Oh, how many diseases do you have?" Oh. And then in high school, I remember getting picked on for my insulin pump, this dummy guy that picked on lots of people. He was like, "Nice pager." And I remember being nervous about, there was this new boy at our school and he had a crush on me and I had a crush on him. And I remember being nervous about, like, does he know I have diabetes? Because if he finds out, maybe he won't want to date me. So, I had I was diagnosed at 13, so I didn't have to deal with like 6-year-olds, right? But I had those same thoughts. And I recently made a reel on Instagram about when do you tell someone when you're dating, at any age, really. And personally, my approach is I tell them on day 1 when I was dating, because that is a problem for them. That tells me all I need to know. And I am not going to waste another second in this moment, right, with this person. And that's never steered me wrong.
That's great.
Just like in When I Go Low, we have a little catchy chorus in Ain't Gonna Hide My T1D. She sings, "Ain't gonna hide my T1D, ain't gonna hide my T1D. It's part of me, as you can see, and it ain't gonna stop what I can be." So it really is about drilling in that belief, because the messages in your child's head are the messages that they believe about themselves.
I love it. When you write books like this, do you have that melody? And it's kind of a chant, really, but is that in your head as you're going?
Yes. Before my first child was born, I was trying to write cleanup songs because I'm a little neurotic about cleaning up your toys. And I wrote like a cleanup. This is the cleanup song for all the girls and boys. Cleanup song, gotta pick up your toys. Because I just wanted to make sure everybody cleaned up and we made it as fun as possible.
I love it. You've also got a newer position for you, Ginger. I can't keep track of you. You are at the T1D Exchange now, which I talk about a lot. Tell me what you're doing there.
Sure. So I had been a freelancer for T1D Exchange for many years, and I joined them full time this past fall in 2022 as the Associate Director of Communications. So basically, I get to do a lot of writing about their awesome research and manage the team that does our social media and just all our communications, really, press releases and articles, and making sure that all of the work T1D Exchange does, which is very complex in many regards, is conveyed to the public. And because we also need the public's participation. So there's 3 parts to T1D Exchange. There's the Quality Improvement Collaborative, which is now 54 clinics across the country that participate in this kind of working together to conduct research that improves patient care in adult and pediatric endocrinology clinics. And then there's the online community where you can join and answer daily questions about type 1. And we use that information from all the people, and there's thousands of people in the community, to gain insights into what parts of care still really need to be addressed, beyond just the obvious things like insulin is outrageously expensive. But we dig into so many different parts of life, and there's literally 365 questions a year. One comes out every day. So join the online community if you're interested in that. And then the registry, which is basically a portal to online research from home. And the more people with type 1 and family members, so parents are also welcome to join the registry. the more people we have there to participate in research, the more valuable our research can be in helping to improve life for people with type 1 diabetes.
I think that's amazing. I mean, I talk about it when I talk about it on the show. And full disclosure, as you listen, you probably have already realized I'm an affiliate for the T1D Exchange, which means that if people sign up using my link, I may get a payment for that sort of thing, just to be completely transparent and clear. But I'm registered. I think it's fantastic. I would spread the word even if I wasn't an affiliate. But Ginger, I describe it a lot as, we talk on Facebook about diabetes, and sometimes you take surveys online about diabetes, but they don't go anywhere. They don't do anything. But the stuff on the T1D Exchange does make a difference. Can you give us some examples maybe of some of the surveys that have mattered or have wound up in studies? Right back to Ginger answering that question. But first, Diabetes Connections is brought to you by Dexcom. And one of the most common questions I get is about helping children become more independent. Benny was a toddler when he was diagnosed, so we did everything. And now he's 18 and I do basically nothing. I will tell you, those transitional times are tricky, elementary to middle school and then middle school to high school. Using the Dexcom really makes a big difference for us. It is really not all about share and follow, although those are extremely helpful. But just think about how much easier it is for a middle schooler to just look at their Dexcom rather than do 4 to 5 finger sticks at school, or for a second grader to just show their care team the number before gym. At one point, Benny was up to 10 finger sticks a day, and not having to do that makes his management a lot easier. It's also a lot easier to spot the trends and use the technology to give your kids more independence. Find out more at diabetes-connections.com and click on the Dexcom logo. Now back to Ginger Vieira talking about the difference the T1D Exchange can make.
Oh man, yeah, I've had to write about so many. They might
take a minute.
So this is in the QIC, but for example, the QIC is the Quality Improvement Collaborative with all the clinics. They have conducted studies that look at provider bias. If providers are unintentionally not prescribing insulin pumps and CGMs to people of color compared to how often they prescribe them to people with white skin. And the research shows that there is this bias that they don't even realize is happening. And it's affecting how they prescribe diabetes technology. Another is this one clinic developed to add to that, then QIC develops training to address and make providers aware of that bias to help improve the way they're prescribing and make it more equal, right, across all different ethnicities and races.
Right.
And then if it's effective in improving that situation in one clinic, they can then take that and apply it to all the participating clinics across the country. So another example is a wellness program designed intentionally for people with type 1 whose A1Cs are over 9% in the goal to get their A1Cs down. And the average A1C was 10.6%. And then 6 months into the program, the average A1C was 8.2%.
Oh, wow.
So it was effective in helping those patients who were struggling the most. And they can take that program and then share it with all the other participating clinics across the country. And that's a glimpse into some of that research. In the registry, one of the biggest things we have going right now is one of the biggest studies is where you actually share your CGM data and it becomes de-identified. So your name and any real personal information is removed. And it is then going to be analyzed like crazy in ways that I am not a researcher, so I can't even really convey to you how they're analyzing it. And they can take that to better understand many different aspects of type 1 diabetes blood sugar management. And we also have diabetes distress survey, so burnout, diabetes burnout. I mean, there's like a dozen studies every year, and depending on your age and the technology you use, different factors like that qualify you for different studies depending on what those studies are looking for.
That's great. So I'll link up, as I always do in the show notes, about the T1D Exchange, and it's on the website if you'd like to learn more. I would just really urge you, as you listen, to at least go over there and check it out and read the articles, many of which Ginger has written, and also check out the registry to, as they say, drive research that matters. I think it's really important. It's great that you're doing that, Ginger. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I do want to ask you about, I feel like you are one of the most prolific writers in the diabetes community, not just with articles, as I mentioned. We've talked about the couple of children's books, but you have many other books out there, and I've mentioned this before. I think that your books on pregnancy are just so important, and there's a lot more that you've written. But you've got a new one coming out. I don't know how much you can tell us about it. This is about exercise, right?
It's called Exercise with Type 1 Diabetes, a topic near and dear to my heart. I mean, exercising with type 1 is so complicated and it can feel so impossible. And what I love doing through articles that I've written over the last decade is trying to help people understand the different aspects of exercise and how it helps you figure out how to prevent crazy low blood sugars or crazy high blood sugars while you're exercising, and to really understand why those fluctuations are happening, that they're not random, and that once you understand why, you can actually prepare much more easily and more successfully for your workout and make it actually fun to exercise, right? Most people have a really hard time with exercising and not bottoming out and then having to just eat all the calories they just burned and getting really frustrated and then not wanting to exercise at all. I mean, I just have so many friends who've reached out to me with that kind of story. So I took everything that I always want to try to teach people about exercise and put it as concisely as possible in this book. And it should be available in March on Amazon. And I'm really excited about it.
I think it's worth noting that while, you are a good writer, you do your research, you are also a certified personal trainer, you are a record holder in amateur powerlifting, or at least you set records. This is something that you have lived and that you are very well versed in.
Right. This is not just Ginger's personal opinion. I was a competitive athlete for several years and an avid exerciser since I had to stop the intense competitive athletic pursuits. But I exercise a lot every day. I love exercising, whether it's walking my dog or jumping rope or lifting weights. And it all comes down to some really clear science that anybody can learn, and you're not going to learn it at the doctor's office. And I really love taking those kinds of things and boiling them down so that we can all understand them and then apply them to our blood sugar and insulin decisions.
I know the book is coming out, and I don't want you to ask. I don't want to ask you to give everything away, but I am curious. The last couple of years with the automated insulin device systems, Medtronic, Control IQ with Tandem, and Omnipod 5, people are changing how they use their pumps for exercise. You don't use one of those systems, though, right?
I don't, but the science still applies to that.
Okay.
Because really, at the end of the day, it comes down to insulin on board. And if you don't know how much insulin is on board in your system before you start exercising, you're not going to have fun exercising. It's going to be either super highs or super lows if you have too much on board and you don't know that. So it really, regardless of how you are delivering insulin, you need to know how to time your workouts around insulin on board. And that is what my book teaches you how to do.
I mentioned you don't use one of those systems. You use Afrezza, and people are always curious about that. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So I just want to make sure it's clear. I still take injected insulin. So I use Lantus, long-acting, Novolog, rapid-acting injections, and Afrezza, inhaled insulin. But I use inhaled insulin for as much of my mealtime or correction doses as possible. And then when Afrezza isn't applicable, like if I need a teeny dose, or if for me, teeny dose, I mean like a half unit, quarter unit, or even just 1 unit. I can't do that with Afrezza. Or if I need to cover something that's digesting slowly, I will take a combo of Afrezza and Novolog so that I have the long duration of Novolog, long compared to Afrezza, and then the fast acting of Afrezza, because Afrezza is like literally affecting your blood sugar within 12 minutes, but it's out of your system. The lowest dose I notice is out of my system by about an hour. And then the next size dose is I also take the 8-unit cartridge, is more like 90 minutes that I would be aware of it being on board if I was going to exercise. So it's in and out really fast, which is really helpful for exercising because it means I could eat at 12 o'clock, take Afrezza, walk my dog at 1 o'clock, and I know my blood sugar is not going to plummet at 1 o'clock because that dose is already out of my system.
Wow. How long, do you mind if I ask, how long have you been on that routine with Afrezza?
I have been on it for about a year and a half, I believe. Yeah.
Just curious, being nosy.
Yeah, that's all right. There's very little about my diabetes. I'm not sure there's anything at this point that's private. So.
Well, I'll tell you what's funny, Ginger, and I don't mind leaving this in too, is Benny just turned 18 not too long ago. So we don't have that many more options for treatment, but we do have a few more, including Afrezza, now that he's not, a pediatric patient, which is crazy to think about for me. I'm just like, oh my gosh, my kid's not a pediatric patient.
Yeah.
But it is interesting to look at these other options.
Yeah, and Afrezza has had a hard time gaining momentum. I was very reluctant to try it. I only tried it because I was assigned to write about it. And after interviewing several people with type 1 about their experience with it, I was like, all right, I got to give this a try. And it really is so different. And the biggest problem for people that's confusing for them is that it comes in doses of 4-unit cartridge, 8-unit cartridge, and 12-unit cartridge. I don't get the 12s in my prescription. I just don't, it would be rare that I needed that much at one time. So I use the 4s and the 8s, but you can't think of it as 4 units of Novolog, 8 units of Novolog. It's not. It's just I wish they'd labeled them small, medium, and large, because that's really what they are. And you don't have to do this exact carb counting with them. It's more like you had a small snack, you take a small dose. You had a medium amount of carbs and protein, you take a medium dose. And because it's out so quickly, if my meal is still digesting, I might take a second dose an hour later, depending on what I ate. And I just look at my CGM and like, oh, I'm trending up a little bit. I'm going to take another little dose. It's such a small commitment because it's out of your system so quickly that there's so much less stress with taking it. And the lows are milder because it clears your, I can look at my CGM and it might say 100 with a down arrow. But if I know that my Afrezza is about to clear my system in minutes or 10 minutes, I know I'm not crashing. I'm just going to land at 90. And so there's less panic.
How was the learning curve with it?
There is a learning curve for sure. And I have written pretty extensively about this. The company I used to work for, Beyond Type 1, if you go to beyondtype1.org/inhaled-insulin, you will find like 8 articles I've written about inhaled insulin there. But I'd say that you should really approach it with thinking that I'm going to have to like relearn how to dose insulin for my meals now that I'm on Afrezza, and enjoy the experiment. Don't get mad when it doesn't work the way you expected. Realize like, okay, that wasn't quite what I thought would happen, and then learn and make adjustments and figure it out. So I'd say a month or 2 is the learning curve.
Very interesting. All right, I may be following up with you if Benny wants to try it.
I love it.
But I'll definitely read the articles.
Really sad if they took it from me.
Before I let you go, I want to circle back to Ain't Gonna Hide My T1D. I remember when the first book that you did with Mike came out, people were kind of showing the kids reading it. What has the response been to this book? Who's reading it? What are they telling you they like about it?
Most of the responses we get are in Amazon reviews and then private messages. And one of the biggest things is that we're talking about low blood sugars. Well, sorry, are you talking about when I go low or Ain't Gonna Hide?
Oh, either one.
Yeah. I mean, both are, we're talking about low blood sugars without fear, without it being scary, right? It's factual, but it's not scary. We're not trying to like threaten the kids. If you don't do X, Y, Z, you're going to have lows. It's not that tone. Both are really about not just your confidence in how you deal with others and your diabetes, but also just how you think about yourself as a person with diabetes and your confidence in managing it and learning, and that you're not alone. And so those are the messages that we're getting from parents of just thanking us for this kind of uplifting, positive message, a variety of messages, really.
Well, I'm looking forward to the next picture book, the next children's book, and the next exercise book. I think these are great. And Ginger, I don't know when you sleep.
To get you a copy. I do sleep, I swear. I just write very fast.
Well, you got 2 kids, you got 2 dogs. I see you jump roping 24 hours a day. So you're very busy. But I'm really glad that you're a busy person, because that means that you put out great books like this for the community. So thank you so much for all that you do. And thanks for joining me. I really appreciate coming back on.
Thanks for having me, Stacey. You have the perfect voice for radio. I can't tell you enough. It's like exact pitch that every radio host wishes they had.
It's really funny. I used to do commercial voice work. So I have a variety of voices, but yes, that's my radio voice.
Funny. Okay. It's working for you.
Thanks so much.
You're listening to Diabetes Connections with Stacey Sims.
More information about Ginger, about her books, about diabetes doodles with Mike Lawson, her illustrator, all the stuff she talked about, she's written extensively about, and I will put that in the show notes and at diabetes-connections.com. I have some big news about a big event that I'm going to, and I hope to see you there. And it is a bunch of people I'm pretty sure I have never met before, at least the vast majority. I will tell you about that in just a moment. But first, Diabetes Connections is brought to you by the T1D Exchange. And I should do a quick note here. Longtime listeners will know this. Ginger and I did talk about both Afrezza and T1D Exchange in the interview. Both of those are show sponsors. You've heard me do those commercials before. But as I've said many times before, sponsors are paying for their commercial. We believe in them. That's why they are on the show in the first place. But they don't tell me what to say outside of those specific areas. That said, I really urge you to take part in the T1D Exchange registry. This makes a big difference. The registry connects academic and industry researchers to us, giving you what they call a dashboard of curated T1D research opportunities. So what does that mean? It means you can pick and choose what you do and know that you're making a real difference for everybody with type 1. T1D Exchange is a research study which gathers information directly from people with type 1, including data on disease management, CGM data, and self-reported outcomes. The more people that they have in the registry, the more they can study different aspects of living with T1D. They're looking for people to sound off on diabetes, burnout, medications, technology, parenting, and a lot more. Be heard. Support the type 1 diabetes community and drive research that matters. Easy to sign up, and it's all confidential. T1dexchange.org/Stacey. That is T1dexchange.org/STACEY. Looking at the calendar for this year, besides the events that I'm going to, and more on that, I have a whole community page at diabetes-connections.com where you can see where I'm going to be going. And you can also see the kinds of talks I do. If you're interested in having me come speak to your event, I have a sample of the presentations that I do. I'm always happy to add more. If you have a special request for something maybe from one of the books or something that you don't see, just reach out. I am happy to work with you on that. I was hesitant to do too many events this spring because we have such a busy May coming up. We have my daughter's college graduation. We'll be going to New Orleans to celebrate her graduation, and we will also be moving her either back home or wherever she is going to go next. My goodness, she's been in that apartment for 2 years, so that should be interesting. Then we have the following weekend, we're doing a very big family reunion for my husband's family at my house. Oh my gosh. So I'm very excited about that. Do not get me wrong. I'm just a little nervous about hosting so many people, but it's going to be a blast. We haven't seen some of these people in years. My kids have not met some of their cousins ever, which is unbelievable. So I'm excited about that. And then we have Benny's high school graduation. So we are really just juggling things in May and early June. So I was incredibly excited when I got a call from Thrivabetes asking if I could speak to their group at the very beginning of May. Are you familiar with Thrivabetes? This is a group in Ireland. I'm going to Ireland. I'm so excited about this. They've been doing this conference for a couple of years. They took a couple of years off because of COVID. But of course, this is a conference for people with type 1 diabetes and for parents of kids living with type 1. I'm going to link up more information as I get it, but we are done with the planning stage, at least of getting me there. And I'm sure more information to come. So if this is something that is close to where you live, I know we have a lot of UK listeners. I would love to meet you in person. This is Saturday, May 6th. I've linked it up on my page. They've linked it up on theirs. Of course, on their page, it says Saturday, 6th May. But if there's a possibility you're going to be there, drop me a line and let me know. Okay, scheduling wise for this show, no newscast this week. Our next interview show is set right now to be with Tandem. We just talked to them a couple of weeks ago. They had a few more questions and they came back on to answer some of them. So you will hear from Tandem next week. And our next In the News episode is next Friday as well, not this Friday. Easiest thing to do is just subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, and the episodes will automatically load. You don't have to keep track of anything, but listen, please, wherever it is easiest for you. All right, thanks as always to my editor, John Buchanan from Audio Editing Solutions. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Stacey Sims. I'll see you back here next week. Until then, be kind to yourself.
Diabetes Connections is a production of Stacey Sims Media. All rights reserved, all wrongs avenged.